Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another edgy conversation. I'm really excited to be joined today by the Reverend Dr. Amber Mattingly from Houston, Texas. She is a recent participant in our Curiosity cohort with the EDGE Network, and so we're so excited to hear her journey and hear her story today. So without further introduction, I will pass it over to Amber. Tell us about your story. What has your community of faith been up to? Where is your Curiosity journey at?
Oh, thank you. I just really appreciate being invited into this conversation, as well as being invited by Reverend Courtney Armento to participate in the Curiosity cohort. I live right outside of Houston, Texas, and I am currently the pastor of Heights Christian Church. Heights Christian Church has been on an incredible journey since 1912. But my journey only recently began with them. I took the position and felt called to be their pastor last February of 2021. Now, one of the things that I was so excited about and appreciated about Heights Christian Church is that they were very forward thinking. Over 20 years ago, they saw their membership begin to decrease in size. And so they thought, well, how else can our property, this beautiful property in Heights, Houston, how can it be beneficial to our community? And so they had this visionary leader who decided, hey, let's make sort of an art community here on our property. So they opened up the facility to a ballet studio, to an art studio, as well as then more recently to a pod school. Well, I was just thrilled because, as we know, sometimes there are hurdles to people viewing using their property for other than church activities. But this didn't seem to be a problem for Heights Christian Church. Well, fast forward over 20 years, and as we were coming out of the pandemic, still facing challenges, we realized that our community had gotten even smaller. When I took the position, they had said to me that the community was about 40 to 50 members. But as we started regathering, we realized we were probably around 20 members. Well, our arts community, our ballet studio, our schools were also struggling. Well, our denomination, the Christian Church Disciples of Christ, last summer offered a training for pastors whose congregations either hosted other organizations within their property or were interested in hosting other organizations. So I had never been a part of a church that had hosted another organization. So immediately I was curious about what they might be sharing with us. So I signed myself up for that. And it was a Zoom event. So I log in and they introduce us to a person who specializes as a church lawyer. Well, he begins to walk me through this process of what can be done on a church property, what shouldn't be done, kind of some of the legal things that, as people of faith, sometimes our curiosity doesn't extend from the big idea into the small details. Well, he got us into those small details.
Wow.
And immediately red flags went up for me. And
Hmm.
I had to go back to my board the next week and say, we need to hire a church lawyer because I'm pretty sure the way that our arts community was established was not done within the legal parameters of a church. So this past fall, we went through a discernment process. We got great counsel, but to be quite honest, it felt like everywhere we turned was a no, you can't do that. No, you can't do that. No, you can't do that. I would come up with a big, great idea and then propose it and then just be met with, no, you can't do that. So my curiosity was really at a low point because I felt like I had exhausted all ways of being curious and looking at the situation and having a hard time because as a minister, I want to proclaim the good news. And yet I felt like it was always the bad news of no, we can't do that. So with a little bit of curiosity left, I approached another minister who was the transitional pastor at a sister church of ours. And I knew that they had been struggling as well. And I said, what would it look like for our churches to merge? Is that something that your church might be interested in? And I confessed, I haven't even talked to my church. I have no idea if they'd be interested, but I just want to ask the question. And he got really excited and thought, this is something worth pursuing. And so over the past few months, we've been on that journey of looking at what might that feel like? What might that look like? What might we bring with us from where we currently are to this new location? How would that affect leadership? Kind of all of those other questions. And it was at that point that I started in with the curiosity cohort. And that just really helped fuel that last bit of energy and curiosity that I needed. I had felt like I had been running a marathon all by myself. And when I entered the curiosity cohort, it felt like there's somebody there offering me Gatorade and those little jelly beans to like keep me going and keep me curious about what the possibility for my faith community might be for the future.
Wow. I have to say, you said that question of what might it look like, and I just got goosebumps everywhere because I think that is so at the heart and core of curiosity is, not always having the answers, but just the openness to say, what might it look like? Wow. Amazing. What's been, you mentioned this sense of getting to curiosity cohort, and it's like, someone's giving me Gatorade, someone's giving me a protein snack. It sounds like it's been a hard or challenging journey. What's been, some of the challenges? You mentioned lots of no's. What's been the real piece there?
Yeah, great question. I think as we engaged in dialogue during the curiosity cohort, that was when I was able to step back and reflect on all the no's that we had heard. And it just felt like a shut door, another shut door. Whereas we practiced yes and, I was met with no. And no for good reason. Some no's have to be there because there are parameters and legal things that we need to consider. But practicing yes and practicing curiosity, even in my situation, helped my mind and my heart open up again to what these possibilities might be for the church moving forward. I mean, one of the biggest things is that I don't have a position in this new church going forward. So my position ends, and I will no longer be on the journey with this new church that is collaborating together. And then once they're ready to hire a minister, then I might be a part of that process. But I was able to step back and reflect on not only the church's journey, but become curious about all the feelings that I was feeling. I'm new at this church, and here I felt I was put in this position to guide the church to something new, and yet knowing that it was not a guarantee that I was moving forward with them. So it was an opportunity to not only reflect on the church's journey, but an
Mhm.
opportunity for me to discuss with other people and really step back and reflect on, wow, what does this look like for me? And what are all the emotions I've experienced over the past year? And where am I currently? And I am currently feeling very at peace about the situation. And yet there is a lot of uh, people are not comfortable, right? So we've made the decision to merge, but we still have one foot in what's old and what is comfortable and where we currently are worshiping. But then we have another foot in sort of the great unknown. Where are we going? What will this look like? And so it's hard and uncomfortable to be sort of one foot in both worlds. And so there's some ways in which we are behaving, which just show that we're going through grief.
Yeah.
But my ability to have this time with the curiosity cohort to not only reflect on the church's journey, not only reflect on my journey, but it's also allowed me the opportunity to notice behaviors when they arise, notice different words, and become curious about how the other person is feeling,
Mhm.
what those words stem from, which is really grief and discomfort and unknown, kind of just sitting with the great unknown.
Wow. Yeah. And I'm hearing this, throughout your story, these little threads of, curiosity has this huge piece of discernment that's included in it. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah, it's beautiful to hear that, curiosity isn't necessarily a giant leap of faith into the unknown. It can be a step, it can be kind of sitting on both sides of the pathway as folks discern and grow in their curiosity.
Yes. You know, that yes and can not only be used kind of as a group when you're dreaming about the future, but it can be used internally as you are uh, discerning for yourself kind of what you're feeling called to, what processes and new things you're discovering. Because that yes and gives you a sense of openness,
Mhm.
open mind, open heart, open spirit, so that you can discern, like, wow, my spirit feels really excited about this one thing, um, or real uncomfortable about this. And so what questions might I ask about that? And I think that is part of the process that my community of faith went through in their discerning, was opening themselves to layer upon layer of curiosity, and then seeing each other become excited about collaborating with another church and growing in curiosity about what that may look like. And I think that really helped them come to a decision as a group about that. Now, it was not unanimous. The
Mhm.
church did not vote unanimously to go forward with collaborating with our sister church. So I don't want to paint a picture that says that we all were curious and got on board. And no, that's not where we live. But that same sense of open-hearted, open-minded curiosity is also helping us care for each other as we transition.
Wow. That's a really, and it's kind of a nice segue into my next curiosity, which is around like, where has the spirit been living in this story? Where has God been present in this journey for your community and for you, maybe?
Yeah, I think that, part of curiosity is this unending hope.
Mm.
And that's where God lives, right? And so really attuning ourselves to the idea that hope is connected to and lived out in curiosity, is where I think that my community of faith really saw God very present. It seemed very early on, although people wouldn't say that they connected to it right at the beginning. But I will say that I saw the presence of God really when we started talking about what it might be like to work in collaboration
Mm.
with a sister church. Um, that is where the weight of what we had been going through seemed to lift, and that sense of hope for the future, of a resurrection story, of new life beginning to grow. That is where most people, you could see it in their body language, you could see it just on their face, that is where they were sensing that God was calling us. And even right now, as it is tough,
Mm.
with it not being a unanimous vote, it is tough living in both worlds. It's that idea that no, we felt God leading us to this. We see this as God's way of giving us new life. And those are the words that they're using now to talk about this new adventure.
Wow. That's incredible. You kind of alluded to it there in your last little sentence around, what story is your community? And we ask everybody this when they come to Curiosity Cohort, but what story in the Bible is your community of faith in around curiosity?
Oh, that's such a great question. I think when I first thought about that question, I really thought about the story where Jesus turns the water into wine. There's so many points of that story that I think connect to ours,
Mm.
because our story is one that we've been celebrating and being together as a community since 1912. So we have this long party that has been going on. And yet, in the story, the greatest wine, the best wine, the wine that Jesus makes out of water, was saved for last. And so I think, although it's uncomfortable, although we didn't plan this, I think that my community sees that this is kind of that new wine, and that it's not the end of the story, that the party is going to continue, and it's going to be even better in some ways than even before. And we can't even wrap our minds around that, except for that we trust in that that is God's plan for us.
Wow, really lovely. And no question, I've heard it in your story. There have been moments of challenge, moments of doors being closed and lots of no's. What's been the most unexpected part of this journey, though?
Oh, that's a good question. I think the most unexpected part was we went through a 10-week discernment process this fall.
Mhm.
And then we took a vote. And our first vote before Christmas, it was 7-7. So there was no decision made. And to go into Christmas with, wow, we have walked this journey. We have turned over every rock and peeked around every corner. And my team, the group, my community of faith was so diligent to be there every week, to pray, to read scripture, to become curious. And yet we had a no vote. And so that was unexpected. It was discouraging, it was challenging, and yet we decided to take a pause to again remember Emmanuel, God with us, and celebrate that even in the midst of what seemed like chaos, even in the midst of what seemed like destruction. It was a real practice to celebrate Christmas together, and yet what a beautiful opportunity to deepen our faith in those moments. And then we returned in January and went through a much smaller, shorter time together, and then took our second and final vote the first Sunday of February. So, there's always these unexpected turns. And it's okay. I had to say for myself, I don't know what to do with this. I don't know what to do if there's a 7-7 vote. I don't know how to help my community of faith except for to return to the scripture and the practice of still being together in community, and remembering that God is always with us no matter where we find ourselves. And so to stay true to looking down at where my feet are and proclaiming that where I'm standing right now in this moment is holy ground.
Wow, really beautiful. Which leads to a huge question that perhaps you don't have the answer to. What's next?
Yeah, we are taking that week by week now, it feels like. Every week we're making new decisions like hiring a realtor to sell our property. So that's a big step. Making a decision on when our first time of joint worship will be, which for us that will be May 22nd. And so it just feels like every week there's another level of decisions being made, and that like we are writing the story right now. I don't know where this goes, but we are in the process of writing that story together.
Wow. Yeah, and incredible, I think, coming together of faith and curiosity and discernment and trust in every member of your community, that you all can write this story together and have it move forward in a way that really honors everybody. Wow. Is there anything else that you want to share with us or that we should know about your journey with curiosity, where you folks are at or where you're going?
I guess I would just encourage clergy, lay leaders to be a part of something like the Curiosity Cohort. It's time now that we become curious about where God is calling us in the future. And I don't think my story is sort of a format for people to follow at all. I think God is calling us to do new and different things, and that will look different for everyone. But the support and the encouragement and the resources that were given during the Curiosity Cohort really helped keep me going, and I think is a great resource for clergy and lay leaders.
Wow, really great. Thank you. And then if people wanted to know more about your community of faith or they wanted to find out more information, where could they do that?
Well, we are on Facebook. It's HCC Houston. We also have a website, hcchouston.org. And if you want to know more information about me, you can go to my website, ambermattinglylivefree.com.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Amber. It's been such a joy to hear not just your story and your community of faith, but like over 100 years worth of history around what your community of faith has been doing and how they've been really faithful along this journey, and being open to whatever has emerged as it's come up. I think is an inspiring story, even if it's not done being written yet. So I'm so grateful that we've had the opportunity to hear it today and to share in this space with you. And I know I'm excited for what comes next for your community. I will be thinking about all of you on May 22nd. as you make a big step across the path there. But exciting days ahead for you folks, and for where curiosity might take all of you.
Thank you so much for the invitation to share this story. I hope that it is encouraging for others to just continue taking the next right and loving step.